The interesting thing is that the Omega Wave, it was an incredible album. And
My favorite.
yeah, my favorite by the band too. And I remember, because when that came out, this is when you kind of had this renaissance with a lot of these thrash bands really putting out a lot of great stuff. Death Angel was back and doing this. Exodus, Testament was putting out some stuff, and the Omega Wave was great because around that period of the mid to late 2000s. You had Heathen putting albums out, putting an album out. I was really excited to see the band back because, they lived up to their reputation because I liked the other 4 albums they had done. And then you just, obviously, you didn't hear anything for a long time. And obviously I still have my Forbidden shirt from that album cycle, but, it was an incredible record. And to hear the fact that the band is back is cool. So, what were those shows like initially when you started singing on stage with them?
Oh, my initial shows?
Yeah.
So they kept everything very hush. They weren't letting like anything get out. There were some people that would hear us, through the rehearsal window or whatever. And we started off with a hometown secret show that, ended up being sold out, but it wasn't too secret for those who know. And we just performed under Twisted Into Evil. And it was a very small venue. And that was just sort of like, let's give at least all our friends and fans here the first taste. And it was overwhelming. Like everyone loved it. Afterwards, people were just coming up saying, this is going to work. Because, in the back of my mind, I mean, it's big shoes, man. It's a big, everything's just, this is a band I grew up listening to,
Sure.
So for me, it's always been a little nerve-wracking at times. I didn't know how I'd be perceived. Hell, I've grown up in the era, and I'm sure you have as well, where we've seen singers replaced and we've seen the hate that can be thrown their way if they're not the right fit. And even if they are the right fit, But so that went over well. Then we went overseas. We did the Alcatraz Festival, and we did a show for a VIP show, and those went over huge as well.
Yeah.
And I think what kept me going was the fans. When we would do like the signings and things, they would come up and they were like, they'd say weird things. And I say they're weird because to me, I don't look at it the way they do. They say things like, thank you for saving my favorite band.
Yeah.
I didn't save anything, or thanks for bringing back, I don't feel I did anything. This is a whole group effort, and I just happen to be the guy that was available and I guess lives in the area and sings well enough. It just kind of works.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of nerves in the early shows. I didn't know what to expect. I'm going out, I'm not singing my own stuff. There's not one song I wrote. Every song is a staple off of, these legendary thrash albums. And if I don't do it right, I'm going to hear about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a little nerve-wracking to answer your question, those early shows, but very exciting at the same time.
Speaking of hearing about it, there seemed to be, maybe I didn't see it, but there didn't really seem to be any like negativity directed towards you, when people saw you singing these songs. A lot of singers, and this, you're a music fan, you've seen it happen. Like you mentioned before, you get people that come in, they could even be a great singer, but people will give them a lot of crap because they're not the original guy. But it didn't seem like you ran into that. I remember, I don't know, maybe it might have been YouTube about, there was a show that somebody, one of the cell phone camera shows or, videos somebody posted on there. It might've been with you singing. And I was like, man, this dude, like, I always thought that your vocal style would fit them, when I heard about it, but it actually, seeing it was, it confirmed all that, but you didn't seem to get a lot of pushback. It felt like.
No, and I know exactly which video you're talking about. That was the video from that Bay Area Thrational where I did Chalice of Blood with War Ring.
Yeah.
And all of the comments were just fantastic. I think one thing that helps me which has nothing to do with my vocals or any of my talent, is the fact that Russ retired. Now, if they were just not to bring back Russ, they just replaced him with some guy, I think there'd be a lot more pushback. But the fact that this is a singer who's like, says, I am no longer in music, I want nothing to do with music, the only way they're going to get New Forbidden is with a new singer.
Sure.
So I think that helps me, that benefits me a little bit. But on top of that, I definitely stayed true to try to make sure that I sounded as close as possible to those original albums while throwing my own little me in here and there. But I didn't just go and be like, F what it was, I'm doing it my way all across the board. That would have been vocal suicide.
No,
there's been, the worst thing I've seen has been the comment here that pops up, one out of every 1,000, where it says no Russ, no Forbidden. It's somebody that's not willing to give it a shot. They're not willing to listen.
You're always going to have that.
Yeah. So, but other than that, no personal attacks, nothing bad. I've been really well accepted, and that's it's surprising and awesome at the same time.
I think you're right. I think the retirement thing is probably plays into it. But, the interesting thing is, and I think here's what typically happens, and you've probably know this. You'll get that naysayer that'll say no Russ, no Forbidden or whatnot, but then the album will come out, right? And it's kind of like that guy Travis from Crimson Glory, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, he got a different singer. People were unloading on him, bashing this guy before they even heard him sing a note. And then he plays a show, and then suddenly that all went away. So
I watched the videos. I was like, this guy sounds great.
Yeah, and that's my point. So what I'm saying is that I think when people saw that, when they realized, okay, Russ isn't coming back, you went on stage and nailed that song. And the video you're talking about is the one that I'm referring to. Because Russ he was a much different thrash singer than most of them. Because he would go from these harsh vocals to more of almost a clean singing voice in some sense. And that not many thrash singers have done anything like that. It's not common. So you have to have someone that fits into that, and you fit into that because obviously you sang in Imagika, you sang thrash metal, and then of course you're doing power metal with the band that is now disbanded, sadly. And you have that perfect mix from your vocal style from that standpoint. And I think that's a big reason why I thought you would be a good replacement when that all went down. And so I think as a fan too, I think what helps is that you grew up listening to that band. It's kind of like, man, if I were a fan of these guys, I would want this to sound, I would want to sound it the way I'd want to hear it. Right. And I think that's another aspect in a way you probably can look at it when you're doing this.
Yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, right now we're, I recorded one song already that hasn't been released, but it's going to be released soon enough. They just finished the single artwork for it. And, there's the clock is already ticking on that first song being released. And,
sure.
I kept in mind, I'm like, I got to throw a little bit of Russ in there on some of this. I can't just be like, okay, well, now here's a new song done completely in the style of Norm. No. So yeah, it's a balancing act with some of these songs. And it's a little different. And there's a bit of a learning curve for me because I'm so used to singing a certain way and recording a certain way and everything. And now it's like, with this group of guys, it's like, well, we don't do it that way. We do it this way. And, like we were talking about before we started the interview, I just finished a powwow with our guitar player, Daniel Mongrain, and found out that I sing a lot of happy chords, a lot of majors, he says. So, we're going on ways to, I don't know, maybe make it sound a little more evil or, but then when you've been singing power metal for, 10 years, that tends to happen. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping it in the back of my mind that as we roll out these new tunes, to make sure I still stay true to what I think the Forbidden fans will like while staying true to myself at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.